Welcome to the Norwegian Smartgrids Center's webinar series. The Smartgrids Center is a membership association for R&D institutions, companies and organizations and public enterprises that want to promote the introduction of smart solutions in the power system. The Smartgrids Center brings together members from the entire power industry to collaborate on research, innovation and knowledge sharing that leads to a flexible and intelligent power system. My name is June Elin Vik, and I lead the Smartgrids Center in this work. Today's webinar will address the critical needs for robust security measures and a digital privacy protection in our rapidly evolving power infrastructure. And with us today, we have Umit Kali, a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of Kassel, Germany. He has, for the past 20 years or so, worked with digitalization in both academia and industry. He is currently an associate professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, where he works with artificial intelligence, blockchain, renewable energy systems, and energy economics. After his presentation, Dr. Kali will answer your questions from the chat, so feel free to post questions as the presentation goes along. I will now leave the word to Umit. Please, Umit.
Thank you very much for the introduction and hosting me. So today's presentation topic, as you mentioned, is the cybersecurity and digital privacy aspects of smart grids. So I will start with my smooth introduction to the topic, where we will be discussing about the broader aspect, like big picture, and step by step, after a couple of foundation slides, we will be discussing the digital privacy and cybersecurity aspects or matters, issues in the field of energy domain or smart grids more specifically. So if you look at the big picture, actually the energy transition is also explained in various methods. By using various methods, I used to explain the micro, meso, and micro level explanations. So briefly, so if we are looking at the left-hand side, the micro level, these are the incidents or the impacts which are massive. And most of the time they are not controlled by human being. So these are like low frequency, high impact events like wars, OPEC crisis in 70s, or climate change, and many other stuff. So this pressure is massive. Actually, the meso level is the level that our daily life is just happening. Universities, lawmakers, companies, NGOs, we are living in this meso level, which is shaped by macro and micro level impacts. The micro level impacts are like mostly innovations like blockchain, quantum computing, cyber physical systems, 5G or 6G. So in comparison to these micro level, which are massive ways and not controlled by human being, these are more smaller, I would say, impulses, but they are more frequent and impacts like gently pushes the meso level. So in combination of these all events or incidents in a very complex manner, we can explain our industrial or economic life. With this regard, of course, the digital green transition can also be explained by those factors like techno-economic indicators of European Union countries, United Nations, or green shift, which is also very important elements of our daily life, and also the 4 or 5 Ds of energy, like decentralization, deregulation, and digitalization, which will be one of the most important topics of this presentation. So when we connect this big picture with our topic, so I would not name any type of country or incident, so it will be like an overarching discussion. So usually, especially if there are some wars like happening in the higher level, like micro level, it increases the risks of cyber attacks and such kind of like cyber sabotages, depending on the situation to the critical infrastructure. Of course, such attacks can be also committed by using very advanced technologies like cyber physical social systems or cyber physical systems or AI or 5G technologies like recent ICTs. So that means these two triggers or drivers are impacting or increasing the possibilities or like for the attackers' potentials to increase the attack surface for the critical infrastructure. So once we have discussion on the larger picture, I would like to give another landscape description on the cyber law landscape. Especially the sovereignty is a very important element of any state. So even before digitalization. And also digital sovereignty is right now is a very important element of our daily life and upcoming economies. So if we divide the digital sovereignty into two categories, if we give more details on that, the data sovereignty and technology sovereignty are the subcategories. What does it mean? The data sovereignty is about where the data is being processed and stored, and who may control the access to such data, especially the GDPR regulations or e-privacy. If we're talking about the European perspective, of course, in United States, in Japan, other countries, they have their own similar digital privacy and data protection jurisdictions. This is all related to data. So if we come to the technology sovereignty, it is not exactly about data. It's about the codes or the infrastructure hardware, like chip acts. So that means if you are talking about like the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure, it has many dimensions. Especially the chip act is very critical because the hardware which supposed to be used for accommodating the critical infrastructure shall be very clean and non-contaminated. That means the 5G infrastructure or any type of infrastructure shall be far away from being risky. If you look at the digital privacy and cybersecurity aspects, let's say these are three elements: the data protection, digital privacy, they are not the same but very close together, and the cybersecurity of infrastructure are very important elements. So we will be just interplaying between those cyber law and also technical aspects. Of course, if you look at the top aspect, this is the digital single markets. This is the digital strategy of the European Union for the coming decades. So there are some overarching or envelope legislative standards like Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, E-Commerce Act, and gateway regulations. The gateway are the larger companies, which is specified by law in terms of their turnover or impact, like larger companies like GAFAM, Google, of course, Facebook's name changed after that, but the larger companies like Amazon, abbreviation is GAFAM in the literature, which regulates I would say, the interrelations between the international partners, especially the countries and also non-countries. Large companies are also becoming more independent in the digital sovereignty landscape. So it is becoming very interesting. Then that means in future, you will see the companies some of the companies which might be more stronger than the states, not only in terms of turnover, but also in terms of dominating the digital sovereignty. So this is a very interesting extension. And there are also some regulations in terms of like between European Union and United States and other countries, like Privacy Shield and other type of agreements, which is right now invalid because of some data protection issues. But there are also other studies like work, which is used to reconcile such kind of agreements in the coming future. So this is a brief introduction of how the European Union cyber law in timeline. We had European Union cybersecurity strategy in 2013, and we have the ID-related directives, which is also related to the security of the IDs and also safeguarding of critical infrastructure or personal data. Especially Norway has one of the highest levels of I would say standard in terms of the digital IDs. Bank ID associated with other measures is also one of the top level security in comparison to other applications, which is only based on, let's say, paper or very low like standards or profiles. Digital Single Market Act is also very important to synchronize or harmonize the effectivity of the markets within the European Union. To increase the global share of the European Union digital economies or offline economies, just physical economies. And of course, the GDPR and NIS directive are very important. I will be explaining a little bit more details on NIS in the coming slides. Cybersecurity Act and also the cybersecurity strategy are very important elements. Especially this will be a game changer, the AI Act, which is not finalized yet because day by day the territories of the cyberspace jurisdictions are just becoming very interesting with ChatGPT and generative AI technologies. And also we have the Cyber Resilience Act and NIS2, which is the upgraded version of the NIS Act. So if we just discuss very briefly what AI Act looks like, again, this is not finalized yet, but the European Union lawmakers are working on that act, I think, very actively right now. The basic idea is there are certain levels of risk, if I need to summarize all this type of stuff. So the top level is the activities which are related to very high, unacceptable level of risk, which is just sorted out under Article 5, especially social scoring. Some countries use social scoring to score their citizens. I think European counterpartners have some issues with the human rights on that. I personally agree on that. The facial recognition, which can also create some bias on some races or such kind of like groups of people. So AI can be used or is used right now in some places. And dark patterns is also another, I would say, black magic of AI or digital technologies, which is used for electronic commerce applications to mislead the users. But at the same time, unfortunately, we have some evidences that some of the political parties are using such kind of dark patterns in the cyber area to manipulate their elections. So it's a very speculative area as well, but it's not our field right now. And manipulation of any type of critical infrastructure. Second highest risk is education, employment, justice, immigration, and law. Especially there are some programs like online dispute resolution type of programs, which can be like assistance systems for the judges or the decision makers in the jurisdiction system. So these are also can be just manipulated, like used by general intelligence, general artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT's next versions, LLM-based models. These are also high risk. And other lower risk are can be listed like this, like spam filters, video games are minimal risk, which are just discussed under Article 69. So especially for us, we have some critical infrastructure and manipulation using AI. We call it adversarial data attacks are very important elements of Article 5 related activities, which will be a very important issue and feature. If we talk about the second very important law standard in the European Union, NIS Directive, Network and Information Security Directive 1 and 2. The first one is just outdated. We have a new one, NIS2. So this is responsible for safeguarding the critical infrastructure of European Union. Actually, in the first version of NIS, energy is also shortlisted as critical infrastructure like the health system or water supply. In NIS2, we have new extensions of it, especially the space applications are very important because with like Elon Musk's companies or other companies, the digital sovereignty of private companies are also extending the scope, their scope to the outer space and also impacts many other stuff like on the planet. So in terms of law, this is another problem because in law, classical law or cyber law, the territoriality principle is very important. One activity can be, let's say, illegal in one domain. In other domain, it can be considered as freedom of speech, like in the United States, the First Amendments of the US Constitution can also just like yield different decision than European Union as well. So that means if we have such kind of applications in space, that will be more interesting in future. So what is privacy? The privacy is in general, without talking about digital privacy, the confidentiality of the personal information. So it can be like before digital world, like individuals, three categories of privacy: individuals, communication, and infrastructure. Especially this last two bullet points gives us the opportunity to talk about the digital privacy. Actually, I'm chairing one of the groups in IEEE, like a technical standard, digital privacy for the energy-related activities. We have very valuable colleagues, mostly from the US and other countries as well, from Japan and other countries. So we work on the definition of privacy in the field of energy systems. But general description says that the digital privacy is an expectation of privacy, which is also related to online activities, individual control over the collection, distribution, retention, or deletion of the personal data. So this is strongly related to data protection, but it's not exactly the same. So foundations of AI, since the audience is very familiar with smart grids, I mustn't necessarily talk about what smart grids is, but especially the communication technologies and smart control methods are very important elements, which gives the attackers a attack of surface. AI is widely used for different applications. I personally have more than 20 years of experience applying AI in different methods. The models that we developed had been used, AI models, by German utilities for more than, I think, 1.5 decades or something like that, especially in wind power forecasting. But animal detection, predictive maintenance, and other type of applications or AI applications for cybersecurity, improved cybersecurity, are, I think, very promising field of research and industry as well. So in our book in digitalization, we also listed other uses of grid security issues, especially PMU applications, denial of service, and other type of applications like false data injection and adversarial type of attacks are commonly used in the literature, but there are also new aspects which hadn't been tried yet. We try to focus on those ones. So if you look at the technical aspects, I think it's better to describe the ecosystem in a broader sense. We define the entire system as a large cyber physical social systems. These physical systems are analog world, where the energy assets, transmission lines, and everything, including the consumers and producers, the prosumers are listed here. And once we have the digitization, converting the values from 0 and 1, like analog world, to 0 and 1s, like electric meters or different type of sensors. So our digital or cyberspace starts. That means those 1 and 0s shall be communicated from point A to point B using hundreds of different communication technologies, from fiber optic to 5G, or coming years 6G. And the information layer is a very important layer where we are talking about AI, blockchain, and other quantum computing, for instance. And we have control and optimization layer. After that, we have energy markets, where we start talking about social sciences and enterprise level and energy policy, regulatory issues. The cyber law is designed here. So once we explain these all multidisciplinary domains, we can talk about the anomalies and faults actually happening in cyber and physical domain. That means most of those anomalies can happen like during the operation, right? I mean, it mustn't be necessarily an attack. It can be like an anomaly in the like power systems, or it can be an anomaly in the communication channel, like I would say regular parasites or such kind of stuff in communication channel. But more interestingly, the attackers knows also cyber physical stuff in an organized manner. And they can also mimic such kind of anomalies and faults by using AI and just abusing the system in terms of like new versions of cyber attacks. So that means faults and cyber attacks can also be like in the form of false data injection, man in the middle type of attacks, and many different very innovative types of attacks can happen. So if they have local agents, like local people that can help such kind of incidents, of course, that can be a cyber physical asset attack with some other people joining this crime, I would say cyber crime. So it's also a kind of like criminal law issue beside the cyber law issue, which is becoming more interesting if it is international as well, which is not the topic of this presentation. So I would say if we just refer to the value chain of the power systems, starting from large generators, transmission distribution systems, aggregators, like it can be extended to the normal wholesale markets, and electric vehicles, energy storage units, etc. This is the prosumer-consumer edge. This is grid edge. We have different potential use of anomaly detection, right? So we first focused on PMU-based anomaly detection. I contributed a couple of projects with Syntef as well, where we also had some students or PhD students as well work on the same topic together with us. So we can also have hydroelectric related anomaly detection. So it's also related to predictive maintenance and other elements as well. So different methods can also be used for such kind of attacks or faults, detecting the faults. Like it can be digital signal processing, or it can be also different type of AI models, as listed here, CNN, SPY, LSTM, etc. And also it can also be happening on the communication channel as well. So it is quite interdisciplinary. That's the message. So if you look at the selected use cases, actually we had used some American data, which is provided by Texas, and I think that report was published by NREL, very well-known national labs in the United States. So with our students, we just repeated the same experiment using their data. We were able to use their statistical methods to detect the entirely the same anomalies. So the calibration stage was successful. So we used AI methods, which was not done by them, to detect the same anomalies, and we successfully captured them. So and then later on we used the Statnet data, the Norwegian data, and successfully we identified the anomalies using such kind of like local data, using different algorithms here like CLN, BiLSTM, and LSTM. So it depends on the strategy, of course. If we need to be very quick in terms of milliseconds or such kind of stuff, some algorithms are a little bit like computationally heavy. But if we have sufficient time to react, so I think BiLSTM is a very good method. So another case study. So we had two AI algorithms, like one AI algorithm is attacking another one. Let's say AI1 is responsible for solar power forecasting. So the attackers, they just mimic some like behaviors of like solar generation or such kind of stuff, and then attack using adversarial noise attacks. It can be data attack, data poisoning attack, or model poisoning. So that means it's a kind of wars between AI algorithms. So we successfully finished such papers as well, and we are working on the next paper right now that we clearly showcase these studies. I think this is one of the state-of-the-art researches like globally. So that means if the attack surface, like attack levels are not that much higher, so it is also sneaky, but still it may not give a very big damage. After a certain point, the success rate will be there. The successful attacks will be very obvious, and then it can start giving a damage. So that means determining the threshold, which is also an open point right now. What the threshold is shall be determined case by case. This is just like the initial examples of it. Threshold where the attack is successful or not is very important element as well. So using such kind of applications in the field of distributed energy generation or electric vehicle is also a very important issue, especially electric vehicle. If we want to use green energy in our system, is becoming very important, very integral part of different societies, including Norway. So that means interoperation of different technologies are good, but it gives tons of attack surfaces for the attackers. So we have an accepted paper which will be presented next week in one of the leading ACM events in Stavanger. So we just apply the same cyber physical social systems like as a framework, and investigated the digital privacy and cybersecurity related issues for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So what are the effects, etc. Not only technical, but also cyber law aspects had been also discussed. Another use case, of course, as mentioned in NIS directive, so water systems are also considered as critical infrastructure. Okay, it's not exactly smart grids. I just wanted to show that similar concepts can also be used to protect the other infrastructure. We have some colleagues from, sorry about that, this is not the right one, but we had colleagues from the Syntep Digital and other colleagues, other institutions. So you can trace back this paper. It's online in Google Scholar. So here we discussed the same event, events of risk in terms of cybersecurity, cyber law for critical infrastructure as like a digital water infrastructure. So this is the third accepted paper for the same conference. So as a potential solution, so we propose to design the platforms or energy systems like using trusted oracles where the cybersecurity and privacy measures are considered from the beginning in design. So it can be different use cases like local energy or the grid edge, or it can be between TSO, DSO interactions. So that means the main message is we're supposed to just design our systems which are easier to protect and compliant with the digital privacy. So we also just investigated the technical maturity of the technologies and also digital privacy concerns and the cybersecurity concerns of all these use cases. Especially we focused on this paper, the local energy market or grid edge technologies, meaning close to the consumer applications had been discussed, like industrial demand response. It can be like smart charging for electric vehicles, or it can also be residential dynamic load management systems, so associated with AI or not, depending on the case. Of course, blockchain technology can optionally be used here. Blockchain technology is an option. It's not a must, right? Depending on the use case, it can be used. It has different levels of cybersecurity depending on which proof of concept is like proof of X consensus mechanism is used. It provides additional layers of protection. I'm also co-chairing another global group on the standardization of energy DLT or blockchain in other terms. So we developed the cybersecurity stack for blockchain for energy applications. So we also started the same second paper on that. So that means DLT, distributed ledger technology, is obviously can be used to increase the cybersecurity as well. But it is not the primary purpose of blockchain technology. It builds the trust. So it is a kind of Web 3.0. I don't want to use the buzzwords. I think we have sufficient evidence that we just developed real technologies, not the buzzwords. Therefore, I hesitate to say use such kind of buzzwords, but it will be a big part of our future digital feature, but as an option. So among with other technologies. So as a conclusion, I think pandemic conditions accelerated the transition to the full digital economies. It is coming soon. Probably we will see another type of post-fiat currency system on the planet, which had been established on 15th of August in 71, which is not the topic of today, but I would say that blockchain technology or digital currencies might be very important in future, and smart contracts. Digital economies are becoming the open targets for the cyber attacks. It will be more and more. If you look at the statistics, especially ransomware attacks and different type of attacks are becoming very increasingly important, and the prevention methods, technical side, and also legislative sides shall also follow such kind of incidents to make the risk manageable, especially the energy systems, the next generation energy systems is also as considered as critical infrastructure as discussed and shall be protected diligently. We are working on standards as mentioned, but there are other groups and standardization bodies, excluding IEEE, like ISO and others, working on the standards because we need to do the interoperable protocols, how these systems shall work together and protect the systems together. And legislative and political support is essential in European level, in national level, and also state level if it is like country like United States. I believe creating the technical guidelines on applying the cybersecurity standards is very critical, and promoting the collaboration and coordination across the standards, legal standards, technical standards, is very important because as of now, I observe lack of collaboration, like interplay between those standards because it's very early stage, and especially generative AI like ChatGPT is pushing the territories towards in a very unknown area, but it will be known after a couple of years. But for lawmakers, it's still unknown. So I think this slide concludes my presentations. If there will be some questions or need to turn back to a couple of slides that I was too quick to explain, so I will be happy to elaborate more details. Thanks for hearing.
There's one question here for you, Yumit, stating that please elaborate on how you see the importance of applying international standards as measures to reduce the potential cyber risk arising from artificial intelligence.
I think this is a very challenging issue. Even if we are talking about like more simpler matters, I would say data protection. I think recently, some of you are aware that I think last week or 10 days ago, 1.2 billion fines had been given to Meta. This is the highest amount of fine, which is originated by GDPR because they were not careful with the European data. It can be disputed or there can be negotiations, but you can see the volume, 1.2 billion. So that means there had been an agreement between European Union and United States. So this is under transnational law. So these privacy shield regulations had been like questioned after one of their whistleblowers information provided how they can just observe the data under Atlantic Ocean, let's say, starting to enter the US territory, digital sovereignty area. And at the same time, there was an Austrian lawyer. At the time, he was a student, a law student, started a legal process, terms, against that. There had been 2 incidents, actually, that he started. After that, all these type of agreements between United States and the European Union had been invalidated because they were not able to just handle the European citizens' data or European trade zone, EA, like Norway is also inside it, considered as the same group of data. So that means they need additional measures. It's called standard clausule. That will be additional, like I would say, contracts, which is designed by European Union as well, but between the companies. So that means if there's an agreement between the countries, like Japan has still agreement with European Union, you don't need to have a very special agreement because they are whitelisted by European Union. But if United States companies, let's say, they were whitelisted, but they are not anymore until there will be new regulation comes. So they have to be very careful if they are dealing with like any type of like services, digital services. It can be energy-related service as well, or like a platform with European Union citizens and market. So that means that they have to give evidences that they are safeguarding the data and protecting the data of European citizens accordingly. So that means in future, the interoperability between the European Union, like European Union countries or European Union and other countries, and especially the companies, they will become a very independent, probably, players. That will be very interesting, like in political science. After imperiums, kingdoms, and such kind of stuff, the world is evolving. There will be new types of players in future. It will impact all of us. I hope the digital technologies will not put us in a slavery position in future. Therefore, we should be very aware of our rights, which is the fundamental rights of human being. It is also in the same way in United States. Their first amendments in their constitution is also protecting the freedom of speech and human rights as well, the same thing. Then that means the international law is supposed to follow those main principles. And also they're supposed to follow the effectivity of their markets in future. It shouldn't be like over-regulating. So that means such transpositions shall be designed very carefully. We are not there yet, but I think European Union has great standards on it.
Okay, thank you. And then I think this question follows up that. Do you believe that the current local and EU legislative frameworks are enough to address the range of possible cybercrimes connected to the subject discussed?
Probably not, because I didn't give any type of countries or such kind of stuff because it's not my matter. But if there will be an attack, organized attack from one specific country as a part of their organized attacks, right? They can be divisions or whatever, even under their army, cyber army, it is a fact, and target some infrastructure in a third country. The first thing, you cannot identify which individual did it, right? Even it's easy to identify which country did it. And it's also almost impossible that the criminal law will start dictating, because you cannot give any penalty to that, right? Because you don't know. So that means preventive health measures. It's better to have preventive measures in terms of law and technical issues to cover that. So it is one territory which is very difficult. Second territory, law has classical doctrines, subjective and objective territorial principles are valid in law. If there is an international case, for instance, in classical law related to assets, let's say, if there's a problem between Norway and United Kingdom for sovereignty of the oil reserves or gas reserves on the sea, it's also a territorial principle related type of stuff. But if we are talking about the real examples on the cyber domain, so then that means some infringement of law can be infringing the law of European Union or specific country, but United States, let's say, because all these companies are international, there had been a case with Yahoo in the past, can say that this is freedom of speech. You cannot give penalty to a US company, right? Because they execute the freedom of speech. But that freedom of speech can be interpreted differently in France. That means territorial principle is open. And third and very important part is AI Act. Technically, we still don't know the boundaries of the AI, where it is heading to. And the lawyers, they still don't know actually how to deal with them. Especially the AI Act has amendments over amendments after the release of new technologies. So that means this is upcoming and very interesting territory of execution of different type of technologies and law in future. So the current law definitely is not able to understand and grasp it. So it will take some time. Yeah.
Okay. I think that we are approaching the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for the interesting presentation, and thank you to all our listeners and the good questions in the chat. Today's producer has been Tarjei Åker Reite, assisted by Stian Jørgensen. And I would like to draw your attention to our next webinar with an unknown title to be held in August, and to the Smartgrids conference, which will be held in September. Do not forget to sign up. If you want to know more about us, see our website smartgrids.no and follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for inviting, and take care. Bye-bye.